There are battles being fought in your life right now, not on the streets, not in your workplace, not even in your mind, but in your living room. Yes, while you sleep, while you pray, while you eat with your family, there may be spiritual portals of darkness sitting silently on your shelves, on your walls, or under your bed. And the reason your peace is gone, your finances are stuck, your relationships keep falling apart, and your prayers feel unanswered, is not because God isn't listening. It's because the enemy already has a legal right to operate inside your home. I'm about to show you 7 objects witches and occult workers use to gain that right. And I'm telling you now, until you remove them, you will keep fighting battles that were never meant to exist. Stay with me to the end of this message, because the final object is the one almost every Christian has. And it's the one demons use to anchor themselves in your home. The devil never shows up wearing horns. He shows up as aesthetic. Many so-called art pieces, dreamcatchers, zodiac wheels, or symbols of energy are actually spiritual keys. They open your home to spirits tied to witchcraft, astrology, and divination. If you don't understand a symbol's meaning, remove it. Some people keep statues of false gods because they look cultural or historical. But understand this, every idol has a spirit attached to it. When you display it, you're not showing culture. You're hosting a spirit that opposes the God you pray to. That's why Joshua told Israel to destroy their idols completely. Witches and occultists often plant curses through gifts, jewelry, keychains, dolls, trinkets that carry spoken spells. If you ever receive something and immediately after your life shifted into chaos, don't ignore that sign. That object might be the root. These are not innocent spiritual tools. They are counterfeit replacements for the power of God. By trusting a rock or a web to protect your dreams, you are unknowingly placing your faith in witchcraft. And that faith invites darkness to dwell where light should reign. It doesn't matter if you don't believe in it. Keeping tarot cards, spell books, or occult-themed media in your house creates a spiritual atmosphere. Darkness does not need your belief. It only needs your permission to stay. And by storing those things, you're giving it that permission. Objects brought from rituals, tribal ceremonies, or ancient temples often come with attached covenants. These objects can cause nightmares, arguments, and even physical sickness. If you didn't purchase it yourself, or don't know its origin, anoint it or remove it immediately. One of the most common and most dangerous demonic containers is the doll. Used in witchcraft for centuries as vessels for familiar spirits, these are not cute. If you've ever felt watched, oppressed, or fearful in your own home, check the shelves. These are often placed intentionally by people who wish you harm. My friend, God never intended your home to be a battlefield. It was meant to be a sanctuary, a dwelling place of peace, protection, and presence. But as long as cursed objects remain, demons have a legal right to stay. And you cannot cast out what you've chosen to host. So today, I challenge you, walk through your home with spiritual eyes. Pray. Discern. And when you find any of these 7 objects, do not hesitate. Destroy them, burn them, remove them completely. Because the moment you cleanse your home, you will feel it. The atmosphere will shift, the heaviness will lift, and the blessings that were once blocked will begin to flow again. There is a battle taking place right now, not out in the world, not in some distant realm, but in the very place you call safe, your home. Most people imagine spiritual warfare as something dramatic and obvious, demons manifesting in the night, strange noises in the dark, or people practicing witchcraft in forests. But the most dangerous attacks of the enemy are not the ones you see coming. They are the ones that slip in quietly, disguised as ordinary things, hiding in plain sight where you least expect them. The truth is, many homes that look peaceful on the outside are battlegrounds on the inside, because dark forces have been invited in through objects that seem harmless. The devil is strategic, not stupid. He knows he cannot destroy a strong believer from the outside, so he finds ways to plant seeds of darkness on the inside. And one of his most effective strategies is placing cursed or spiritually contaminated objects in your home to build a bridge between his world and yours. Everything you bring into your home carries more than physical weight. It carries spiritual influence. Just like how a Bible brings peace, faith, and light, there are items that carry heaviness, confusion, and spiritual oppression. These objects often come disguised as decor, gifts, souvenirs, or even cultural symbols. The enemy uses them as spiritual doorways, giving demonic forces a legal right to enter your space. That's why some people pray and fast but still feel tormented. That's why marriages fall apart under the same roof, where prayers are said daily. That's why anxiety, nightmares, and unexplained sickness linger in houses that should be places of peace. Because the war is not happening outside. It's happening in your living room. Witches and occult practitioners understand something. Most people ignore. Objects can be consecrated for evil. They can be spoken over, cursed, or bound with spiritual assignments. When these items enter your home, they don't just sit there. They start to work. They influence the atmosphere, manipulate your emotions, weaken your faith, and create barriers that block God's blessings. And the worst part, most people don't even realize they are under attack. They think it's bad luck, or just stress, or the way life is. But in reality, the battle is being fought silently around them every day. The Bible warns us repeatedly about bringing cursed things into our possession, because what you host, you give authority to. If darkness is present, it's often because it's been welcomed, not knowingly, but through ignorance. That's why spiritual warfare doesn't begin with casting out demons. It begins with cleaning out your environment. It's about looking deeper at what surrounds you and asking, who gave this to me? Where did it come from? What spirit is attached to it? Because until you discern what's in your house, you may keep fighting battles that never should have existed in the first place. The most intense war of your life might not be in the world around you. It might be happening right now, in the room where you sleep. What many people fail to understand is that spiritual forces do not always need your permission to enter your life. Sometimes, they only need an open door. And one of the most common doors is not sin, not words, not even relationships, but objects. A cursed object is not just a piece of material. It is a spiritual anchor, a vessel through which demonic forces can pass from one realm into another. Witches, occultists, and practitioners of dark arts understand this far better than most believers do. They know that once an object has been dedicated, spoken over, or used in a ritual, it becomes a carrier of spiritual energy. It becomes a bridge, a portal, through which evil can move freely and operate undetected in your home. This is why the enemy is subtle. He knows most people would never open their doors and invite darkness indirectly. So instead, he hides it inside something that looks beautiful, harmless, or even sentimental. A souvenir from a trip, a piece of art, a necklace, a carved figurine. These can all become vessels if they have been spiritually charged or cursed. Once placed in your home, they act as silent spies, spiritual transmitters that give demonic forces access to influence the environment around you. And you may not notice it immediately. It may start as tension between family members, strange arguments that appear from nowhere, sudden financial setbacks, or restless sleep. Over time, it becomes heaviness that sits on the house. A feeling you can't explain, but can't shake either. That is the work of a portal doing its job. These cursed objects don't just exist as symbols. They invite spirits to linger, to observe, to whisper, and eventually to attach themselves. It's why certain homes feel spiritually heavy the moment you walk in. It's why some people pray for breakthrough, but never see results. Because while their mouths are rebuking demons, their shelves are welcoming them. And until those cursed objects are removed, the door stays open. You cannot cast out what you continue to host. Throughout history, God repeatedly warned His people not to bring accursed things into their possession, because they defile everything around them. In the book of Joshua, Israel was defeated in battle, not because of their enemy's strength, but because someone had taken a forbidden object into the camp, giving darkness a legal foothold. The same principle applies today. If your home contains what the enemy has claimed, then the enemy has a reason to stay. It becomes his territory, his right, his doorway. This is why discernment is so crucial. You must look beyond the physical and ask spiritual questions. Where did this object come from? Who gave it to me? Was it used in a ritual? Does it carry a symbol connected to darkness? If the answer is uncertain, you must treat it as a potential doorway and remove it. Because the longer it stays, the stronger the enemy's grip becomes. The key to spiritual authority is not just in prayer. It's in purification. And purification begins when you close every portal the enemy has been using to step into your life. One of the most devastating truths about spiritual warfare is that the enemy doesn't always need to overpower you. He only needs you to stay blind. Ignorance is his most powerful weapon because it allows him to operate freely, unnoticed, and unchallenged. Most people assume that if they're not directly involved in witchcraft or darkness, they're safe. But the reality is, the enemy thrives where there is no awareness. And if you don't know how he's working, you will never know how to fight back. This is why countless people who genuinely love God still find themselves under spiritual attack. They're praying, fasting, going to church, and yet confusion surrounds them. Peace leaves their homes, finances stay stuck, and relationships fall apart. It's not because God is ignoring them. It's because there are open doors they don't even realize exist. The devil doesn't need your permission to plan a trap if you never notice it's there. When you lack spiritual knowledge, your home can become a playground for darkness while you think everything is normal. That decoration hanging on your wall might be a symbol dedicated to a false deity. That gift sitting on your shelf could have been spoken over in a ritual. That harmless object in your drawer might carry a spiritual assignment to weaken your faith. And yet, because you don't know, because you were never taught to discern, you let it remain. This is how the enemy gains legal access without ever revealing his face. The Bible says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Notice it doesn't say they are destroyed by demons or curses directly. They are destroyed because they don't know. And ignorance is not just about not having information. It's about not paying attention, not questioning, not seeking understanding. The enemy loves a believer who is passionate but uneducated, loud in prayer but blind in discernment, because that believer will keep fighting the wrong battles, while the real cause sits silently on a shelf in their living room. Ignorance also creates cycles. You might cast out a spirit in prayer, but if you leave the cursed object in place, you've left the door open for it to return. You might pray for financial breakthrough, but if there's something in your home blocking blessings, your prayers will keep hitting invisible walls. And every time nothing changes, frustration grows, faith weakens, and doubt creeps in. That is exactly how the enemy wants it. For you to fight symptoms instead of sources. Awareness is the first step to authority. The moment you become aware that objects can carry spiritual power, that items can be cursed, and that your ignorance can invite oppression, you begin to take control of your environment. Spiritual warfare is not just about shouting prayers. It's about understanding how the enemy works and cutting off his access completely. The more you know, the less room he has to operate. And when ignorance is broken, bondage loses its power. One of the most overlooked spiritual truths is that nothing in this world is truly neutral. Every object, every symbol, every piece of material carries a certain influence, a spiritual essence that reflects its origin, its purpose, and the intentions spoken over it. When we bring something into our homes, we aren't just adding decoration or storing a possession. We're also inviting the spirit that is attached to that item into our environment. And whether we realize it or not, that spirit begins to influence the atmosphere around us. This is why some homes feel heavy the moment you walk in, even if they look beautiful. It's why certain rooms feel cold, tense, or unsettling without explanation. The unseen presence is often linked to the objects within them. Every object has a story. Some were created to honor God. They carry peace, light, and blessing. Others were created for dark purposes. They carry fear, confusion, and oppression. Items used in rituals, sold in occult shops, or designed with demonic symbolism are not just things. They are extensions of the spiritual world. They act as carriers of the same spirit that empowered their creation. And when those items are brought into your home, they don't leave their nature behind. They bring it with them. Even if you bought it innocently, even if you think it's just a souvenir or a beautiful design, the spirit attached to it does not change simply because you're unaware of it. This is why discernment is essential. Before something enters your house, you must ask deeper questions. Where did this come from? What was it made for? What belief system does it represent? Who handled it before it reached me? If an object's origin is connected to idolatry, witchcraft, false worship, or evil intentions, then the spirit behind it follows it into your home. And once inside, that spirit begins to influence the spiritual climate. It might manifest as subtle changes, tension between family members, increased anxiety, recurring nightmares, sudden anger, or even physical sickness with no medical explanation. These are not coincidences, they are often spiritual effects of the objects we've allowed in. Even gifts and heirlooms are not exempt. A piece of jewelry passed down for generations could be carrying an ancestral covenant. A statue given as a good luck charm could actually be a representation of a pagan deity. These objects might look harmless, but in the spiritual realm, they are legal grounds, permission slips for demonic presence. And as long as they remain, they give the enemy a foothold he doesn't deserve. This is why it's not enough to simply pray for your home to be peaceful. You must also examine what's inside it. Just as you wouldn't drink water from a contaminated source, you shouldn't decorate your home with spiritually contaminated items. Purity in your environment matters. What you allow in your space influences the atmosphere of your life. Every object is either a vessel of light or a vessel of darkness. And by choosing what stays and what goes, you are also choosing which spirit you want dwelling with you. There are times when people pray with all their heart, fast with deep sincerity, and cry out to God for breakthrough. Yet nothing seems to change. Doors remain closed, peace never settles, finances stay stagnant, and relationships keep breaking apart. It feels as if heaven is silent and every effort is wasted. But what most people don't realize is that the problem is not their faith, not their prayers, and not God's willingness to bless them. The problem is that something in their environment is blocking the blessing from flowing, just as a clogged pipe stops water from reaching its destination. Cursed objects and spiritually contaminated items in your home can act as invisible barriers that interrupt the flow of God's favor. Spiritual warfare isn't always about dramatic battles. Sometimes it's about hidden interference. These objects may seem harmless: a statue, a piece of art, a charm, a souvenir, or even a book. But if they are connected to darkness, they act as spiritual barricades. They create resistance in the unseen realm, preventing blessings from reaching you. You might pray for financial increase, but the spirit tied to an object in your home could be one that brings poverty and lack. You might seek peace and restoration in your relationships, but a cursed item on your shelf could be releasing division and confusion into the atmosphere. You may ask for healing, but a spiritually defiled possession could be empowering infirmity to remain. This is why some people feel as if their prayers hit a ceiling, because something in their space is working against them, while they keep asking God to move. In the spiritual realm, legal rights matter. God honors free will, and the enemy exploits it. When you willingly host objects that belong to the kingdom of darkness, even unknowingly, you are, in a sense, giving the enemy permission to stay. And as long as he has a legal right to remain, your blessings can be delayed, diverted, or diminished. This is why the Bible repeatedly warns us to touch not the unclean thing, and to remove the accursed thing from among us. It's not superstition, it's spiritual law. What you allow in your home affects the spiritual climate of that home. The effects of blessing blockers are often subtle but powerful. They create atmospheres where faith feels weak, where confusion thrives, where joy is quickly stolen, and where opportunities seem to slip away. They don't just bring problems, they prevent solutions. And because they operate silently, most people never suspect them. They keep praying harder, fasting longer, and trying more. But without cleansing their environment, they're fighting against a wall they don't see. The moment these cursed objects are removed, however, the difference is often immediate. The atmosphere shifts, prayers feel lighter, breakthroughs come easier, and blessings begin to flow unhindered. It's not that God suddenly decided to answer. It's that the blockage was finally cleared. Your home should be a channel for God's presence, not a storage place for spiritual obstacles. And until the blessing blockers are gone, the blessings themselves will always struggle to arrive. The greatest mistake many people make when they discover the presence of cursed or spiritually contaminated objects in their home is hesitation. They convince themselves it's not serious, they postpone dealing with it, or they plan to handle it later. But in spiritual warfare, delay is dangerous. Every second that those objects remain, they continue to function as active portals, giving the enemy permission to influence your home, your mind, your relationships, and your destiny. The longer they stay, the deeper their roots grow, and the stronger the hold of darkness becomes over your life. This is why spiritual battles often feel like they intensify right when you start to become aware of them. It's not your imagination. The enemy knows his time is running out, so he fights harder to stay. Action cannot be symbolic. It must be decisive and uncompromising. You cannot simply hide these objects, donate them, or pass them along to someone else. Doing so is not removal, it's relocation. The spiritual assignment attached to them does not end when you move them. It continues wherever they go. The only way to end that assignment is to destroy the object completely and cut off its influence. In the Old Testament, when God's people discovered idols or cursed objects among them, they were commanded not just to remove them, but to burn them, break them, and utterly destroy them so that no trace remained. That same principle applies today. If something is a doorway for darkness, the only safe place for it is outside your life, permanently. This is not an emotional reaction. It's a spiritual necessity. Think of it like discovering poison in your drinking water. Would you leave it there for a few more days while deciding what to do? Would you offer it to a friend or place it in a different room? Of course not. You'd eliminate it immediately because you understand that even a small amount of poison can do immense damage over time. Spiritually, cursed objects are no different. As long as they remain, they continue to release their influence, weaken your faith, and give the enemy a foothold. Many people wonder why their prayers seem powerless, why their homes feel unsettled, or why blessings are delayed despite deep devotion. Often, the reason is that they are still tolerating what they should have eradicated. Spiritual authority requires spiritual obedience. And obedience means taking bold action, even when it feels uncomfortable. Some of these objects may have sentimental value or monetary worth, but no amount of emotional attachment is worth the cost of your peace, your destiny, or your connection with God. The truth is, freedom often begins the moment you choose to let go of what has been holding you. And in this battle, hesitation gives the enemy time. But swift, decisive action removes his power completely. The enemy is subtle. He doesn't always roar like a lion. Sometimes, he hides behind the picture on your wall, the charm on your shelf, or the souvenir by your bed. And as long as those objects remain, they give darkness a legal right to stay in your home, block your blessings, and drain your peace. But you were never meant to live under that weight. Your home was designed to be a sanctuary, a place where God's presence dwells, where joy overflows, and where no demonic influence has authority. So now the choice is yours. You can ignore what you've heard and let these hidden doors stay open, or you can rise in spiritual authority, walk through your house with discernment, and tear down every foothold the enemy has built. Do not negotiate with darkness. Do not delay. Seek out every cursed object, every item that does not belong, and destroy it completely. Because the moment you cleanse your home, the atmosphere will shift. Peace will return. Prayers will break through, and blessings that were once delayed will begin to flow freely. You are not powerless. God has already given you the authority to cast out darkness, to guard your home, and to protect your destiny. All He asks is that you do your part, remove what the enemy planted, and make room for His presence to reign.